The crisis in relations between Azerbaijan and the Russian Federation continues. Baku responded to raids by Russian security forces on the Azerbaijani diaspora planned to sue Russia for the case of the downing of the Azerbaijani civilian plane by Russian air defense and is demonstrating a tough stance towards Moscow. The Kremlin has already announced a difficult period in relations between the two countries, and Russian propaganda has even suggested a military conflict with Baku. In an interview with Glavred, the director of the Center for Middle East Studies, Igor Semivolos, told what to expect from the aggravation of Azerbaijani-Russian relations, explained how Azerbaijan's geopolitical position is changing and what is happening in the South Caucasus, assessed the likelihood of military provocations from Russia, and predicted the further actions of Baku and Moscow. In his previous speeches, Aliyev has repeatedly said that one should never agree to the occupation of one's territories, but he has not previously linked these words directly to Ukraine. A direct and public statement specifically addressed to Ukraine has indeed become an innovation. The hysteria in Russia after Aliyev's statement is connected with the fact that it has invested a lot of resources in creating media and a pool of experts who, in Moscow's opinion, promote the Azerbaijani position and work to bring the positions of both sides closer together. However, everything has turned out in such a way that the Russians have found themselves in circumstances that are against them, and they themselves are unable to change anything. And these circumstances demonstrate that Russia is incapable of pursuing an equal policy, admitting its mistakes and acting in accordance with international politeness. Until recently, the context of relations between Azerbaijan and Russia was absolutely clear. For example, Moscow was actually a silent ally of Baku in the Karabakh War, and Baku never voted for UN resolutions on Russia, and in every way demonstrated a very cautious position regarding Ukraine. It provided our state with humanitarian aid, but refrained from transferring military aid. However, Azerbaijan and Aliyev still faced a negative attitude towards themselves from Moscow. Such disrespect influenced the behavior of Azerbaijanis, he added. Experts say if the Russians weren't idiots, they would obviously apologize, change their attitude toward Azerbaijan, and try to somehow mitigate this escalation. However, Moscow is doing the opposite, because it is not accepted for Russia to apologize to Azerbaijan. The hysteria we saw from the Russians only confirms this. In general, Azerbaijan's behavior will continue to change. Over time, the context will only worsen, because the situation with the downed plane near Grozny, the repressions against the Azerbaijani community, and calls from Russia regarding supposedly the bombing of Baku create a negative context for further relations. And Aliyev's speech with words directly addressed to Ukrainians testifies to how much everything has changed. The Russians have changed Aliyev's policy with their own hands, he told. I don't think there will be military provocations, but we need to keep a close eye on the border between Russia and Azerbaijan in the north. Azerbaijan has strengthened its subjectivity. Baku has taken part in negotiations between Israel and Turkey as a mediator, as well as between Syria and Israel. It works with the United States and has significantly improved relations with France and Europe. Baku acts independently in these matters, and its alliance with Turkey strengthens it. Azerbaijan is already a fairly independent player and will only strengthen its position in the future. This will give Baku confidence that Russia will not be able to do anything. And if Azerbaijan, despite certain objections from Moscow, manages to sign a peace agreement with Armenia, Baku will effectively get rid of its last dependence connected with the Karabakh conflict, in which Russia played a very large role, he added. Russia is undergoing a series of high-profile arrests, convictions and mysterious deaths that are paralyzing even the highest echelons of government. The latest case The suicide of former transport minister Roman Starovoyt has shocked the country's political elite, writes The Telegraph. "It looks terrible," said a former official in the Russian presidential administration who asked to remain anonymous. "Arrests, deaths, scandals. People have screwed themselves up." On July the 7th, Starovoyt, the 53-year-old former governor of Kursk Oblast, died by suicide while under investigation for large-scale embezzlement. His former deputy, Alexei Smirnov, had allegedly already testified against him. A vacuum of fear has formed at the highest level. What is really strange is that the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, has not expressed any sympathy. The same official noted. Even the prime minister is silent. This is a sign. So far, courts have handed down decades of prison sentences even to former deputy defense ministers, and falling out of windows has become a new political metaphor. Transneft Vice President Andrei Badalov did not survive a fall from a balcony, and billionaire Konstantin Strukov's private jet was forcibly returned when he tried to leave the country. The rules have changed, says Alexandra Prokopenko, a Carnegie Center expert and former advisor to the Central Bank of the Russian Federation. Now it doesn't matter who supports you. It's not the strongest who survives, but the most cautious. There is currently a growing paranoid mood in the Kremlin. One current government official admits, "I try to stay away from dangerous topics. We're all locked in our own little worlds." The war in Ukraine has upended the status quo, with the Kremlin nationalizing businesses to plug its coffers while corporate raiders compete ever more violently for a shrinking piece of the pie. "It all looks horrifying," said a former official from the Russian presidential administration. "If you look at the recent arrest of top state company executives, the mysterious deaths, people in government and politics are, pardon my French, sucking themselves." Andrei Soldatov, an expert on the Russian security services, agreed that the Kremlin is working together with the FSB to control the Russian elite through repression. The FSB collects compromising material on officials, top managers of state-owned companies, and politicians, he said. If a particular institution needs to be purged, say a ministry or a regional leadership, they start by arresting the number 2 and extract testimony implicating the top figure and other key players. Everyone understands how it works, and everyone is terrified, he said.